All right. Well, thank you for joining us for our July edition of our Kentucky K-12 CIOs and EdTech Leaders Webcast. I'm David Couch here, broadcasting from Versailles, Kentucky. Thanks for joining us this morning. I sent the agenda this morning, along with some additional attachments and Go Soapbox questions. A new addition we have this morning to the agenda is Kevin Brown will be speaking in just a few moments. I've asked Kevin to join us. But before that, I've asked, and Kirsty has actually asked to make to give some updates and some things. As most of you realize, back in early March, I think Marianne, that's the last time I saw you, Marianne Rankin with Kirsty and Boone County Schools. We had the Kirsty conference, but unfortunately we had to end it the day early. We didn't get to do the closing ceremony or anything else. So I want you to give a Kirsty update before we got started here, Marianne. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Glad to do that. So, as you know, we had to cut our conference short in the spring. So we have a couple of updates. Our new theme for this year is going to be Soaring to New Heights, and we're super excited about some things we have planned with that. We have we're moving full steam ahead. I know there's a lot of craziness going on, but we are planning. Just as we always do, we have our outreach grants that will open up. So folks be looking out for what you want to maybe apply for with those outreach grants. We have a fall event that we're going to plan, and that's going to take on a little different view. We're maybe not going to do one day of a virtual learning event, but we're thinking of separating that out to have some lunch and learns, some happy hours over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, and have some guest speakers along with that. So we're super excited about how that may change. And then we have some awards, as we always do. That window will open in the fall. And you're going to see a little change with that. In the past, our awards have been like Outstanding Teacher, Outstanding Leader, Outstanding Tech Support. And because we are an ISTE affiliate, we are going to follow the lead of ISTE, and they have changed those awards to be called Impact Awards. So you will see us with a nomination window opening for Impact Teacher and Impact Leader, Impact Tech Support. So be thinking about those folks you work with that are really impacting the educational technology landscape for that. One award that is not changing is the Making It Happen Award. And so that's why we partner with ISTE. There's been over 700 folks that ISTE has recognized with this award since its inception in 1995. And this is really an award that, for a category that folks, it's not a teacher, not a leader, not a technical support person, but just someone who's just really impacting the educational technology landscape. And so Kirsty would love to take this time to recognize that winner that we did not get to recognize at the spring conference. And some of the things that we'd like to recognize this person, they're truly models the student first mindset. They understand how to get folks engaged. This person has joined forces with big names, Microsoft, with Google. This person's responsible for launching Kentucky's first IT academy, STLP Girls Who Code, Digital Learning Coaches Academy. And a quote from the nomination we received says, "One thing I love about Laura is that she understands that vast landscape, and she has a natural ability to connect with people and build relationships. She has skills and passions to advise all of Kentucky's school districts in order to better leverage instruction for students. That's where we need to be, and she is helping us get there." So on behalf of the Kirsty Board, we would like to present Laura Raganos with our Making It Happen Award. And Laura, one day I will get to share this jacket with you. So when we can get back together, we'll be so happy to give this to you.
Laura, turn your camera on. We want to see you.
Oh my goodness. So I knew there was something behind this. Because I'm actually working with the district today, and Marty has been so adamant about me making sure I can get on this, and you've got to be able to turn your screen on. And so I was like, wait a minute, there's something else behind that, because you're not usually that adamant with me about being on this and being able to be visible. So Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Kirsty and to everybody else. Marty knows that I don't like awards. I don't like to be at the front. I'm a person who's in the back trying to make it happen, I guess, right? With everybody, but don't like to be. I don't like to be at the front and center. But thank you so much for it. I can't say enough about the people though that I work with, because I can't take the credit for doing all the work. It's the people who are out in the trenches. I just have the best job. Sorry, Jeff Cebulski, I have the best job in the world. And I get to help other people make it happen for their students. And that's the reason we do what we do. And so because of that, just thank you to all the people, especially to the digital learning coaches that I was told that's what I was going to talk about today. Digital learning coaches who are actually making it happen, especially during the COVID situation. They're the ones that are making it happen. So while I accept the award and I'm very honored and humbled, I also want to make sure that we understand that the award goes to our digital learning coaches, because they're the ones who are making it happen. So, but thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Marianne, one of these days we'll all get back together.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Kevin Brown, I'm going to ask you to say a few words. I asked Kevin to join us today. Kevin is in on this. He's been on it for a long time. And so I've asked Kevin Brown to join us. So Kevin, if you can say a few words.
Sure, absolutely. Laura, congratulations. Very well deserved. I've had the experience, as you all know, over the years of being able to work with OET in multiple roles, and also having the opportunity over the last few years to be a recipient of the OET services from a school district level, which really opened my eyes even more to what that goes on. And you have been and continue to be a strong part of that, and a perfect example of, and I like how we talked about students coming first, but before students can come first, you have to help the adults, and you're there behind the scenes helping the adults and to make sure that students come first. And how appropriate it is that you're getting this award right now because of what all you have done, your team has done over the last, well, it's been over 20 years, 25 years, but particularly recently, the foundation that has been laid and then all the expertise. We're in a global pandemic. Kentucky has been able to pivot over to non-traditional instruction, remote learning, using technology. And it's almost like we've been building up for this moment for 25 years. And I love to talk about OET because of that story. And Laura, you are a perfect example of that role model, that mission of working behind the scenes. And because of that, I believe we're one of the top states that have been able to serve students in this way, and it's because of your work. So I'm glad I could be on here. I learned a long time ago that when David tells you to do something, you just better do it. And so I'm OET. Don't tell any other office. You're my favorite office, Laura. Very well deserved. And also I've gotten to be around you some more and in your expertise, helping the board out and helping me out and others, and just truly amazing to watch you work. And it's just a perfect example of the work ethic that is alive and well in OET. Glad I could be here with you all to celebrate this.
Thank you, Kevin. Gosh, that was awesome. And Laura, of course, thank you for the work that you do. This was fun. It's always fun for me to blindside and with awards, good awards for folks. And Kevin knows that. He helped me participate in something else we did with the Stillwell Awards. So Kevin, thank you for being my accomplice in something which is a lot of fun and very rewarding. Thanks for the kind words about what we've been doing and what we are doing. So I appreciate you making time to join us today for this special announcement. Now, Laura, get back to work.
Yes, sir. I've got the district on the other device over here. And actually, my partner in crime, Ben, was going to pop back and forth. So, yeah, I'll pop back over there with them. But thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Laura. Very proud of you.
Thank you.
thanks to all the districts for joining us that morning. And Kirsty, thank you for being, such a great partner and recognizing one of our staff members and recognizing folks across the state and all that you do. I, once again, in working with my peers in other states, while we can always get better, and we try to get better, and there's not everything we agree 100% on, but the relationship that we have with Kirsty, very proud of that. Between a state agency and our districts and our vendor partners, it is very strong and is not what you see in other states. And so I'm very proud of it. And thanks for recognizing Laura's good work that she does with the districts. And if you heard, she came in, and we were doing the very first virtual board meeting, totally virtual. Laura was with us and trying to help folks do that, and our board members do that. So we're filled with folks that do that and out in the field, and she says she's a good representative of it. And I always feel when one of our folks is recognized, it recognizes the good work that organization is hopefully and value adding it's adding to districts. So I appreciate Kirsty. And Marianne, thanks for part. Marianne was wanting to go and deliver that jacket. She was going to do it socially distanced and follow all the precautions. But we'll get that jacket to you, Laura. You'll enjoy that. And unfortunately, the only downside is you can't go to ISTE and wear that around, but that'll be made up in future years. So we're going to go forth with the rest of our agenda. First up is what we are presenting to the state board up here in a couple of weeks. Every year, we do share with you what we're presenting. This is an item that we present every year in regards to the technology needs of our state, annual technology needs of our state, and then the funding sources that we've identified to address those needs. So for new folks, or folks just need to be reminded, this is in our master plan for education technology, our 2018 to 2024. And if you're not sure, if you're new or not sure what that, just do KETS master plan, and that'll bring up a bunch of plans. KETS is KETS. Not KET for Kentucky Educational Television, but KETS, the full KETS, the Educational Technology System. Do that, and if you go to the very last page, it gives a breakout of all the items that lead up to $366 million annually. So what we do every year, we remind the board and everyone else, so we have this annual need, this annual reoccurring need, to do some kind of basic operations day to day, keeping the lights on, which is a huge part of the funding. Usually it's about 65% of the funding is just keeping the lights on. The services there. The other part is do incremental replacements. And there's usually a sliver for new and emerging technology, but those are the big buckets for it. And then once again, we identify the funding for it. So the unmet need for the upcoming school year is $366 million for all of Kentucky K-12 school districts. And we've identified $330 million worth of funding to address that need. And obviously there's a gap there. But to be honest with you, this coming year, it's a smaller gap than it's been in a very long time. And mainly that's due to the CARES funding that's filling that gap. Comparison to last year, going forward this year, there's $65 million more dollars to address the needs. And a big chunk of that is the CARES funding going to districts, the services we're doing at KDHC. I'm going to show you that breakout in just a minute. Other big chunk of that is the E-rate funding. We've had a huge amount of districts that applied for the E-rate rebates and discounts. And we've taken that into account and comparing to previous years. So while it's not perfect, we have received some supplemental temporary funding sources to address that. I also sent with you, and I'm going to bring up the breakout of that $330 million here in just a minute, but also part of educating the board of just the money is usually it's my annual way to give them an update on what we're doing with education technology in general, because they spend usually most of their time asking questions about that. And so that's why I attach the timeline. We update that twice a year, once right before this state board meeting and once in January for the annual legislative session. Same thing goes with the infographics. So those have been updated to the July version. I asked that, much like the note I sent this morning, And this morning's note had the attachments to those two latest ones. If you haven't seen those, are we missing any of the historic achievements that we've obtained? Now, a lot of those have happened, to be honest with you, during the pandemic. And as Kevin said, we were well prepared as compared to the other 49 states to do quick pivots to telecommuting, telelearning, teleteaching learning. And not that we're 100% perfect, far from it. But once again, in comparison to our peers, I think we're the best prepared state in the nation to have done that. And the historic timeline is really good for folks to see, and it captures the things that we're doing. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. And to come up with that, as you all know, you give feedback at the end of every year. The 5 things we did well, didn't do well, and need to work on, and didn't do well the previous year, did well the previous year, and we need to be goals for the next calendar year. And so we looked at that. And so that's where I took those from. But obviously, we didn't do another one of those feedbacks lately. And we've had a lot of other things happen. So I updated it along with the feedback to have the timeline. So the next up, I'm going to bring up, let me scroll down to that and find it, our operational plan. And see it here just a minute. I'll scroll up. I think I have it big enough. I'm assuming everybody can see that. Just give me a thumbs up, somebody, that you can see it. Can folks see it? Just one person say yes.
Yes.
Yep.
David.
Thumbs up.
Just one time. Yeah. Okay. So this starts out with, we first of all start out with the KETS funding sources. So this is the breakout of those funding sources, and we'll send this to you electronically as well. We just wanted to talk to it. So you see these are the state shared services items that we do on behalf of all school districts. And that accounts for 11.3 million. And then the KETS offers from that is 4.1 million, and that's what makes up your first KETS offer. Those numbers are nearly identical to what they were last year. And just a note, from last year, this dropped from 16.4 million to 15.4 million due to the budget cuts. And I'm going to show you a graphic at the end of this that shows you over the course of time what's happened to our KETS funds and why we need your help in the upcoming legislative session to try to make sure this, first of all, doesn't get cut more. But also to try to raise it back up to what it was back in 1992 to 19.5. Actually, our goal was to go above that to 24.5 because of the new services of districts, and we share with what those kind of things are for the people side of EdTech, amongst other things. So this is the KETS funds that you hear about, and then we show the other funding sources that are available. Laura definitely was part of that IT Academy getting launched, and you heard that talked about, and that's the funds that the legislature has appropriated for that service. E-rate plays a huge part of what we do in Kentucky K-12. I would call it, beyond KETS, the lifeblood of our program, and being able to sustain it during bad times. Without this funding source, we would be in a world of hurt. So we do a lot of things to try to protect the E-rate rebates and E-rate discounts, and making sure they're not threatened, and we're doing the right things with it. So with the $12.1 million from the KH3 contract that we get, the Kentucky Information Highway contract, that was established in 1992, but it's rebid about every 10 years. I think we're in the 7th year of that 10 years, something like that. And we get the rebates from that, and obviously we try to do some good things to be rebates. A lot of good, a big chunk of that $8.8 million from those rebates goes to offers of assistance. 1.1 is for our district services, for internet services. To beef those up, you all get the increase, the bandwidth increases. Now, we've asked the legislature to also increase the funding for KEN, to be honest with you. But as long as they don't do that and bring that up, we will have to use the rebate money to help us address the growth. Wish there was another way to do that. We do KD infrastructure upgrades for services for our school districts at KD agency. We use a portion of that, the rebates, to help pay for the Infinite Campus portion. And we use it also to pay for our E-rate management and administration services. We also keep a contingency fund in place that has come in handy through the years. And it'll probably come in handy during this year. If there's a budget reduction, this will be the place, one of the first places we go to try to address any kind of short notice budget reduction. Of interest is this one, though. This one has dropped dramatically, not because of any mismanagement, just because of the financial situation. We usually get close to $1 worth of offer out of that, because anything we gain on the Catch Trust Fund bank account, an escrow account, we send it out to districts annually and gets offers. And, we've gotten up to 600,000, 700,000 in previous years. And, because once again, anything that's in it, we go out and we start again. And so this year it says 15K, and that's probably on the high side. It may be going on some of the months it was below zero. So that number is really low, and that affected us being able to send an additional $1 that we normally send. You can see our intention is to send out $12.9 million, and you get that 12.9 by adding 8.8 that you saw above in the E-rate rebates to the amount of money, the 4.1 that you saw in the first CATS offer. And normally we could have maybe got to 13 million. Had it been not such a bad with our interest, but it was. So that's the amount of money, and you can divide that up by, I don't know if we have Mike Lettingham's mic on, but you can divide it by the average daily attendance to get what we anticipate to be the CATS offer. But our goal was to keep it about the same as it has been in previous years, and that's pretty amazing given the amount of budget cuts that we've been sustaining since 2008.
Yeah, David, our goal is to maintain the same offers of assistance, $21 per ADA that we did last year. And that is dependent upon the dollar amount you're speaking to directly right there, as well as the potential of additional E-rate dollars. Because there's always from year to year with the E-rate dollars that comes into play that usually makes up that little bit of difference.
Yep. And so we will need you, even though, you think about, the CARES funds I'm getting ready to talk about is short-term funds, is we will need you to help us to try to make sure we protect E-rate rebate funding and not putting anything in that in jeopardy, but also making sure trying to keep the KETS and the KEN funds, the Kentucky Educational Network funds, without being cut and ideally being increased going forth. Only so long we pull rabbits out of the hat. So CARES funds was set aside, was given, and this is where your feedback and just a reminder, we sent Go Soapbox questions. Those are anonymous that you're responding. Obviously, we have discussion part that you can identify who you are, and I always think you should be able to ask a question or make a comment revealing your name. I'd see too many things where people just blast and hide behind being anonymous. And I say, show some courage and bravery. And there's a way you can disagree with stuff and still make a comment there. But the poll questions are anonymous. And I encourage you to fill that out because it helps, just not us, but it helps each other districts see who's doing what. And these are questions that we've asked you all to respond to. And we're going to, at some point here, ask you to, see everybody's results of this. But we used your responses last month to come up with these estimates for the ESSER funds and the GEAR funds. You see what GEAR stands for. This is the governor's proportion that he allocated for K-12 for 2 years. And the dollar figure of 8.3 is for 1 year of those 2 years. If you double that, 16.3 was the estimate. But we used your feedback that you gave last month of saying what proportion of the GEAR funds do you think will go toward technology? And as you know, for that GEAR funding, it can only really go for two things. One is the school feeding, and one is the remote and distance learning. Whereas the ESSER funds, which were made up of $174 million, we asked you to give a feel for how much of that you think will go toward EdTech related items. And we use those percentages and proportions to come up with these numbers. And once again, these are estimate numbers. My understanding from Robin Kinney, who's our chief financial officer, is all the districts at the end of July, and you may be aware of this, you may not be, are required to turn in a report to the agency, I believe I have that right, of their intended purpose of the funds. And so I hope you've been at that table, and I hope you've been part of that discussion, that report, because 31st is not that far away. We also, so you see a huge chunk of money. This is new money. This is temporary money. So I know you all are thinking through, let's not, whatever we do with these things, just make sure we're thinking about the long term and sustainability, as you should. That's just good thinking. But we're interested in what you, the proportion of the funds, and then how much of that with CARES and SEEK and other things you think are going toward buying end devices and other services. We asked the question about internet access home that we're going to hit on here in just a little bit. Let's scoot on down here to the E-rate funds. So the E-rate funds above there are what we apply for at the KD level and get back in form of rebates that we send out in offers and do some other shared services for across state. This is what districts are applying for. And this number is a big number as comparison to previous years. And we anticipate some of that to do maybe the last year, the year 5 of the funds. Obviously, the restart of that the next year will probably anticipate even higher. So E-rate is one of our major funding sources. And so we have to do anything we can to protect that and not jeopardize it and put it at risk for any district and across the state. Super important. We also look at the other funding sources that are available out there. This is what we call it the Kentucky K-12 Internet Resources. Officially on the budget paper, it's called KEN, Kentucky Education Network, but virtually no human knows what that is. So we break that out, and we try to show folks what that is used for. And we show we're in the 7th year that Kentucky became the first state to do that, to connect all the districts to internet. We still have a huge portion of our population, unfortunately, it doesn't realize all of our school districts are connected to the internet. And maybe we were first to do it, and then we have fiber to all the districts and schools, and the statewide average of 260 kilobits per student. And the equity of access and opportunity really drives. It makes Kentucky unique, and it was neat for Kevin. Kevin now in his new role is interact a lot more with other states. And now as a district is now really seeing the cool things that we were really doing. You heard me say it for years, but now he really sees it when he hears other states talking about where they're at right now in comparison to Kentucky. And so we use this as a way to educate the board and the commissioner. Obviously, we've got a new commissioner coming in, of all the funding sources, regardless of funding source, regardless of what office is paying for it, is going toward education technology. So, obviously, KEN is a big part of that. This is where you see the services that we do for, cyber safety and cyber security. We also know that a portion of funds is for new construction, for technology, is part of new construction and major renovations. And we estimate that at $15 million per year. Typically, these are things that are fixed to the building in some way and not mobile, but they are part of one of the KET's unmet need line items that you can go back in that budget I was telling you about and actually see it. We also, for many years, and I would say Kentucky has the best handle on all the funding, and I would give that a 95% probability of all the funding going to education technology, regardless of funding source, regardless of office, regardless of whatever it is, than any other state in the United States, by far. In my discussion with peers, this shows from all the different program areas, different offices, and the reason that's a struggle, and you face this sometimes in your district, sometimes a organization outside of your own has a funding source that can buy technology, and it's really difficult for them or difficult for you to get that information from them of what they're spending it on and what they have spent it on. Now, that's one of the nice parts about the Technology Activity Report in Munis. We have a product standard that we use across the entire state, and we're the only state in America that has a product standard for all the school districts in finance and school information system and high-speed network, only state that has done that, all three. and all three, the other two are cloud-based. So we have a way to gather that information the other states don't. But also, even within KV, the agency, because I, by law, have to present this to our state board every year, I can use that as leverage to say, hey, I'm the CIO of the organization. I present this to the board. We have to show the funding sources that are going toward education technology. And that's not really been too much of a battle, but sometimes it has been over the years, but that's been a nice leverage to get it. Now people are just used to it. I think the new part about this, and Mike, you can tell me something new that we've added here. Of course, the CARES funds that you see added in here. So the area technology centers got a portion of the CARES funds going to them. Kentucky School of Deaf and Blind got a portion of it. I think area technology centers got $2.5 million to buy computers, plus they get another chunk of it, as do the Kentucky School of Deaf and Blind. That was new. I think the what we're doing with the Kentucky Educator Certification Ethics System, getting ready to be fielded, is a new item. I can't remember, Mike, if we included that last year. I know this has been underway for a bit, but there's all, when you add all those funding sources together, it's $16.4 million outside. And then you add all those together, you get $164 million. And in the TAR reports, the technology activity reports, the munis that all districts are required to turn in, allows us to get the grand total amount of other funding sources, additional funding sources through SEEK, local tax fund, other things that you all do, to come up with that $330 million. And I say, well, we can send you this breakout. Mike and team, is there anything else that you'd like to mention to our audience? And I'm not looking at the Go Soapbox questions because I'm presenting, so just let me know if there's something you'd like me to mention before I take this off the screen to our audience, or some question they've asked as I presented it.
David, there's a social question or statement that came in through Go Soapbox that references that most of the ESSER money that has come to this specific district is being used to purchase PPE and cleaning supplies and extra staff to do daily screenings. Yeah.
Okay. And obviously we have a Go Soapbox question, that poll question that says what that's like across the state. I don't doubt that's happening in district. When we asked the question before, there's a pretty good chunk that folks that were looking to, if they didn't have a mobile, obviously anything desktop during these times, like there's like a boat anchor. For students, especially, desktop computers are like boat anchors, and they're in labs are like boat anchors that students can't take home and use, be used in the day for instruction. So, and even younger grades, opening that up. I know LaRue County, was the first district that, one of the first districts, if not the first districts that had, one-to-one down to the K level. I think what they did is they'd always allowed the high schoolers to take it home, but during this pandemic, younger grades were able to take it home. And I think a lot of districts shifted to that. I know in Covington Independent, they had a one-to-one for the middle school and high school, but their intention is like to use the CARES funds, maybe some of it SEEK, to go one-to-one at the younger grades. And obviously they partnered, they had a good partnership up there with their city and some other things that help find a funding source with the company to buy the internet access at home for the low income students that didn't have it there. So we'll take a look at here in just a little bit, but thanks for bringing
after Mike shares, let's go ahead and bring the Go Soapbox questions. There's 4 that directly target this.
Okay, I'll unshare.
And I really didn't have anything additional to add. I think that provided the high level summary, David, that we want to provide. Obviously, I think we just need to open it up to anybody's got any questions or any clarification that we need to provide in addition to what you covered there.
Thank you, Mike. Well, was this a good time to go to the Go Soapbox and actually show some of those responses? Let's go to that, Marty, if we can.
And while I'm pulling that up, David, just one more reminder: we're getting some more responses in through Go Soapbox, but you can either reference the email with the agenda that David sent out. If you're participating through YouTube, there's a lower third. The access code is EdTech, so app.gosoapbox.com with a access code of EdTech, and put your name in, or in the chat feature through Teams. If you're joining through Teams today, we've also have a hyperlink in the chat window to get. So we're seeing some more responses come in. But David, I think the question number one is using a variety of district funds.
And to your point, Marty, we'll keep this one open, and that's probably my bad for not putting that link. I think I normally send out that link to go Soapbox when I do the meeting invite, so apologies for that. So we may circle back to these, give people more time to fill them out, but I encourage you to do that, because all through this webcast, it's not like when we show this is done. What Andy and Megan do for me at the end of the webcast, maybe an hour, hour and a half afterward, they'll send me a snapshot of what we had at that time. So, but it's helpful for all the folks to see as we're discussing it. So,
yeah, and there's multiple ways to get here. We'll keep it open. I think that's a great nudge. So if you're watching this, an archived version later, still it's helpful to go submit some responses. On question number one, how high up on the radar screen do you estimate it is for your district to already have or provide a 1-to-1 mobile student device ratio that are capable of taking home during next school year? And this is as expected, and as this is consistent over the last several months. So districts who did not have plans in place or were transitioning to 1-to-1 for students over the last several years, this is super high up on radar. And as you mentioned, David, we're still seeing districts who have a 1-to-1 initiative or implementation. And again, this is a ratio thing we're talking about, providing a digital device to students at specific grade levels. We're seeing that expansion occur as rapidly as possible. We do know that devices are hard to get right now. We're seeing things on back order. You're seeing that, and continuing that communication across the state is helpful as well. So super high up, 55% of response.
And as a stopgap, we have a very high percentage of our students, maybe the highest percentage in the United States, with a smartphone. And as a stopgap, it's not perfect. It's not like having a laptop. But I mean, there's certain students, that the Pew study that was part of that document that I sent out talked about how comfortable they are using it for a variety of things. So it can be used as a stopgap for folks while they're waiting for the devices to come in and try to get them to the students. This is a good, time. And Marty has spent some time yesterday with Superintendent's Advisory Council with a variety of things, talking about all the different options, school opening options that we have. And I know we have that as a question, and all the different things that we're doing to try to address that. And we know districts are submitting plans, but they change every couple of days. And it's going to be one of those, reminds me of Marty in football, to where you call a play, but you come up to the line of scrimmage and it's an audit. You audible where you're changing the play based upon what you're seeing, what the defense just changed, or you have a player that reads a play, and you have this variety of sports. So you call a certain play, but a player says, it's a better way to do this. And I think there's going to be a lot of that with this. Normally, districts have a pretty solid kind of strategy, a normal strategy, that how they open school. And even with the plans they just announced, I suspect they'll be changing and have to do an environment where they're changing. We're definitely going to see where distance learning is, I think, going to play a major role in next school year. But we always think it's going to be part of the toolbox going forward. But we definitely see it being part of the next school year. I was more hopeful that it wasn't going to take place, till later part of the year, maybe, November, December, January. But based upon what we're seeing now, across the state and across the country with the COVID-19 situation, and you're seeing districts kind of, rethinking, okay, we had this plan, and just not for the students, but for the teachers as well. I have 4 teachers in my family, 3 in Kentucky and 1 in Indiana, K-12, all of them. And so, you worry about your own family, their spouses, the families they're bringing it back to, and you're hearing that from teachers as well as staff members that work with it too. So definitely be a big part of it. Let's go to the next item.
And David, before we leave this one, I want to, if we can, just take a second, because one of our big strategies is access, digital access. And when we talk about home access, that's not just, there's 3 legs of the stool there. There's a device, a digital device, and we want to really push hard on the understanding point that students sharing a device multiple students in a household sharing a device or sharing it with parent is really, really difficult. And I know that's an obvious statement, but we want to consider when we're sharing our plans and when we're developing additional plans that as much as we can get a digital device in the hands of each and every public school kid in the household, that's better for us across the board. So, and then certainly home internet access plays a role, and then access to digital content is that third leg of that stool that we'll be continuing to push on. So, David, the next question is about using a variety of district funds. How high up on the radar screen do you estimate it is for your district to pay for internet access at home? And this is a question that we've dug in on and talked about and asked across the state, especially at homes of low-income students that do not already have home internet during the next school year. And this is, again, pretty consistent. This is staying pretty consistent across the board, which is helpful to us, especially when we're considering additional guidance pieces and additional conversations statewide.
So the document I sent you last Tuesday that we have part of discussion item here, internet access at school, on a bus, at home. One of the questions asked about the devices and didn't really ask specific, is that a school issue? Is that a home issue? But that was a pretty high percentage that had them at the home. We don't know if that included or didn't include the devices the schools provide. But also, they just talked about this internet access at the home. And I was asked, to brought in the Kentucky Board of Education meeting to talk about this. And it's a hot, it's a hot item. I always remind them, this is more of a money issue than a technology issue. With either wired or wireless of existing homes, or wireless for homes that don't have it, internet is available like a 99.9+% of homes. You can get it. You can get it quick. You can get it within the next 1 or 2 months. If you don't already have it, especially with wireless, can get it. It's not 100% solution, but it's pretty close to 99, up above 99% of a hotspot. Definitely in a pinch if you got to use something that versus the ideal. The real question is the funding source that pays for that, and who runs into that is low-income families. And so I did highlight in that document, which I thought it was important, is the things that we're seeing. And I want to put pressure on the telco companies, internet service providers, to provide and do what we're seeing, and even charities. What we've seen happen in some northern Kentucky areas, to receive Goodwill. I think there was another charity that partnered with the Cincinnati Bell to provide internet access at home for a year for low-income students, which is an outstanding idea and an approach. Up in Covington, you had the mayor, Joe Meyer, former state senator, former Education, Arts, and Humanities cabinet, workforce cabinet, I guess. He was there, a cabinet secretary. That team with the school district, team with the private sector to find a solution to go to the home that use a funding source that is not an ongoing funding source to fund that for the student. And so I'm challenging the telco companies to provide. There's a federal Lifeline program already that's out there, but telcos and other charities, this should not be something that a district is being put in a position to solve financially. There's enough things on the plate to solve, and even to be arranging it. And I'm not saying, we're probably going to see exceptions to districts doing that. You see a low percentage of them doing that, and we give the reasons why in the document I sent last Tuesday. There is good reason to show pause and caution in going down that path for the long term, even though there may be a short-term funding source that can put it in place. Definitely some long-term consequences to doing that. But definitely is up on the radar screen. So, and to be interested in comparing, and please spend some time going through this. And I wanted other districts to kind of see where other states are. As I can recall from just seeing that up there, Mario, I don't have it up there now. It's not the same as we saw for the devices.
That's
it's not
correct.
high up and even medium for a good number of that. And that doesn't mean we're not going to have, 5, 10% of the districts do it and go down that path. But we don't foresee that being a 90% path that districts, we don't see 90% of districts go down that path because of the ongoing and all the other things that are associated with that. Although it is possible to use the CARES funds, which are temporary, to buy that service for low-income families. But I would go full court press on internet service providers and charities and companies to lower their costs. Go ahead.
And that, well, I was just going to add that's, community supports and local community success strategies and solutions are what we're pushing strongly for, while at the same time recognizing the extreme value that students have who have strong internet access at home. And we also, in that guidance or that document, David, that you sent out, that statewide, we're trying to develop common language, common talking points that are going to be helpful to you, especially at a local level, as questions come up about, well, what are we going to do about our students who lack internet access at home, and trying to develop some common strategies that are helpful while recognizing that there are different levels of access. Now, certainly we all agree very quickly that strong internet access at home quickly transitions into a utility as much as possible, as quickly as it can, for all of our communities, for all of our families, for all of our public school students specifically. But until we get there, and David, you in our board meeting, you spoke very clearly to these are not overnight. So to run wire across the community is not an overnight solution that helps us start the school year. And so we have to think about the ways in which we can recognize different levels of access and try to come up with some strategies at a community level and at a school district level to help where we can.
Yep. And it definitely a hot topic. I encourage you to stay in constant contact with your superintendent, because what we found is superintendents, well-meaning superintendents, are out there talking about this topic of internet access at home, and they're not including their technology person. And so you're needing to touch base with them frequently, because we have found that usually the technology person, unfortunately, is being the last one made aware of it. So make sure you're in whatever gentle way you can, or direct way, as you're asking about that, the status of that within your organization. Let's take a look at the other care that I think we have.
David, let me make a comment real quick. One of the things that we want districts to make sure they remain aware of is, in working with their local providers, and you all kind of may have said this, but if they need us to assist them in talking with a local provider about kind of the expectations that we have, obviously, for the K through 12 education network, as well as the considerations that may need to be made and around how providers can assist in addressing this, we certainly can do that. The CATS field engineers can be available to do that, as well as we can have other folks. I know I myself and Phil Coleman, we both have engaged in conversations with local providers to assist with the conversation. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Yeah, and to that point, Mike, we have a point in there is I go back to how important E-rate funding is. I would call it the lifeblood of our program, and not doing anything that jeopardizes the lifeblood of our program. And the E-rate program was never set up to be, nor was the Kentucky Information Highway and what we're doing in schools, to be the last mile service for the home. E-rate strictly prohibits that our K-3 connection being used to run the last mile to the home. Definitely puts that service and funding in jeopardy. Not in jeopardy, it's 100% jeopardy. So there's a lot more efficient ways to go straight. If you're going to get into the business of doing the last mile internet to the home, it is much more efficient for you just to go and there'll be nothing coming back to the KH3. Go straight to it. Find a separate middle mile for that to the home. Since our light speed internet content management systems in the cloud, there's no need to point it back to the school. Just point to the cloud. But I do want to say before we close out on the subject, and I've kind of combined this along with the other ones, internet access is a whole household issue. And I've said that before. I'm going to say it one more time again. And We have a family farm that's in Breathitt County, and for the years when I was growing up as a young boy, I spent every summer, the entire summer on that farm. We had 2 wells. We did not have running water. And it's only had running water within the last 10 years. So the wells provided it. But let's say that farm did not have any wells. And so when the running water came to it, that would be like putting running water in for only the K-12 student to use, me to use, and my grandparents couldn't use it at all, or no one else that visited the house. So this is a whole household issue. And I like what was done with these other partnerships. They treat it as a whole household issue and solution versus just a pure K-12 issue. And this is way beyond a K-12, and this should not be K-12 having to solve a whole household issue. But I'm not saying I'd be put in that spot. But if you've not read that document, and it's a constantly changing document, I encourage you to do so, because that's going to be our talking points. And it's much like the COVID-19 situation. We put a date on it, and I'm sure next week I'll have something new to add to that. And Marty, if you could bring up the other ones, I guess there are questions 3 and 4 about where the money is going with gear and Esther.
Yep, you should be able to see that now. Your disproportion of the $174 million in CARES funds, the ESSER, can be spent on a wide variety of products and services, including EdTech products and services. So this was that question about what percentage do you still estimate, or do you estimate today, which may be different than when we've discussed this in the past, that will go towards EdTech products and services. And David, you mentioned earlier when we were developing the staff note for the CATS offers of assistance, we used the responses here to help drive an estimate of percentage of monies that will be spent from this specific fund.
Yeah. Okay. And I'll be interested to compare that to what you all estimated a month ago. What do you think? Let's do question 4.
Mm-hmm.
This is the governor's portion. This should be a higher percentage, obviously.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
So greater than 50%, 50%. So we're getting up into the 60 to 70% of responses that are greater than 40%, which is pretty close to the estimate that we used.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you, Marty. Marty, I want to circle back and if you can go, and we've spent some time on this before, so it's no need, but just if you do a 1 or 2 minute total update on the other 2 items we're presenting to the board: second reading of the technology standards, Kentucky academic standards for technology, and library media standards. So just a quick 1 or 2 minute.
Awesome. We'll absolutely do that. So first, I'll start with the Kentucky academic standards for technology. Those will go for second reading and action for Kentucky Board of Education. And so there were very minor technical, edits to the actual standards document that will be incorporated by reference. And as a reminder, the Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology will be in their own administrative regulation, just as all of our academic standards are as we move forward to update and adoption. The Academic Standards for Technology are a refresh because we've had academic standards in technology for quite some time, but they're certainly modernized. If you have not had a chance to check those out, please do so. We've sent those out in multiple formats, but we'll continue to do that again at a regional level. This is foundational work for students to demonstrate competency in technology, which is a minimum graduation requirement. That is exactly why these standards are labeled as required. Because they're connected to a minimum graduation requirement. We always say, first and foremost, there is no technology test that is being considered or thought about. That's not something that makes sense at this point. It's all about demonstration of the competencies in the academic standards. So that will go for second reading and approval, hopefully. In the first reading, there was strong, favorable response, which was great. From there, they'll move on to the legislative, the additional legislative process, which will take some time. And so we look for implementation to be August of 2021, which gives us actually a nice span of time to ramp up in the implementation. Perfect kind of foundational work for not just students participating and demonstrating competencies through STLP, but also through connecting digitally during distance and remote learning, which we're expecting this fall and all throughout the school year. Next, we will have our first reading of our first ever Kentucky Academic Standards for Library Media. The way that these standards are listed is in parallel to our computer science standards. There is strong connection between not just computer science standards, but also the technology standards. And these are what we, they're listed as elective standards, which means that when library media competencies is taught through our library leaders throughout the state, which are required in every school, that these are the standards that should be referenced. Okay, and so it's very important to understand that. Very similar to the structure of computer science standards, where it's not required for every student to learn computer sciences, or it's not required through assessment or any other means for students to learn library media standards. But when students are engaged in the library or through library leaders, whether that's co-teaching in traditional classrooms or whatnot, these are the standards that should be used and referenced. It's a nice structure for a required position and required structure in our schools, which is the largest classroom in most of our schools, that library media center. So the strong connection there. If you've not had a chance to look at these, please do so. We'll send these out. We'll continue to send these out as this process starts for the library media standards. Excited about that work and excited about putting these structures in place as we move forward. David?
Thanks, Marty. The CARES funding, we're going to spend some time on the 10% funds now. We're moving forward with the Lightspeed relay services across the state. We have some districts that we focused in on here in July. And then for the rest of the year, excited about what that will do. Our great partnership we've had with Lightspeed and stepping up. And then we'll talk more here about the analytics that we want to start, that you will see value of within the district. Well, they'll give you a good feel for what's being used and not being used. I always wanted that capability. Lightspeed has heard me fuss about that for a long time, that we wanted something for the CIO in a district and the superintendent. They get a good handle what kind of things are being used a lot or little, so they can make some good financial decisions about what they buy and don't buy within the district. And so you'll be hearing more about that as we introduce that. But we're taking off right now with Relay. So with Phil and Chuck and Mike, anything you want to say quickly about our Lightspeed implementation? It can be, 15, 30-second type of thing, or you say, David, you covered it all. I don't know.
No, David, the only thing I would jump in real quick and point out is that Lightspeed's pretty aggressively trying to address the needs of everybody that's looking to deploy Relay prior to school. They've got some virtual sessions they're taking districts through. Those virtual sessions have a capacity limit of about 46 people. And I know we've had a couple of districts that, I guess for lack of a better term, were bumped out due to capacity. So just be patient with Lightspeed. They want to make sure they can address the entire audience and any questions you've got as you go through the 3 sessions that they take you through to prepare you for the implementation of that Relay client. But things are going really, really well. I mean, Phil, I see you've joined us as well. Anything you want to add to that?
I would just say that it's the Relay implementation of Relay in the school district will play a big part in any kind of virtual learning from the home. And so, the technology doesn't need to be near as complicated in bringing, it back to the school district and those kinds of things, you can go directly to the cloud. So that's a big, big improvement over what we've had so far. So.
Thank you.
And if it's okay, if I could just add and David, you hit on this, but just to push in a little bit harder, that when we think about NTI, remote learning, and how we're digitally connected, I'm really excited, and we got to take the steps first to make sure that we're launching Relay all the way throughout the state, as Chuck and Phil just shared. But it's exciting to think about being able to have better conversations about what our kids are using, and number one, and number two, getting to the ideas of impact, right? So is what they're using making a difference or not? And so we're taking those steps, and this is I think a really pivotal point for us, and just wanted to push in on that just a little bit harder. We're not there yet, but we soon will be.
Thanks, Marty. Needy, we'll talk here a little bit about Infinite Campus, what we're doing with online registration and campus learning and single sign-on. But first, before we do that, and Marty, you'll cue those up, is we also have two things we're spending 10% on with PD services. We know, one of the questions in hindsight, and it was too late by the time I realized it today, is wish I'd asked is, do you see yourself spending more money than usual on distance and virtual learning PD for this next coming year? We anticipate a portion of that ESSER or GEAR funds being used for that. With districts, it would make sense. It's just not buying the stuff, it's making sure people can maximize it. The people side of education technology, which typically is the one most sacrificed, unfortunately. But as Laura was recognized today, the digital learning coaches are always were essential to me, very essential now, employees and what they're doing. But also at the state level, we are doing and trying to say, what kind of things can we offer at the state level to help out with the PD effort, and also just this thing with virtual schools of X% of parents. We saw the increase of that before the COVID-19 situation, that they wanted a public school, but they wanted maybe a course the district didn't offer. So Marty did a good job with your superintendents yesterday, and we can, versus covering everything again with that, Marty, we can make give you a copy of that, point you to a copy of that, your portion of that presentation where you talked about the virtual schools versus recovering, because that was pretty lengthy. We only have minutes versus the 20 or 30 and it got the most questions, by the way, from the superintendents. And I thought the interesting question was, well, does this violate, and I've answered it, I know, and if we can ask question, is there some kind of privacy issue associated with this? And there's not. The distance and virtual learning has been part of the toolbox for a long time, is permitted. But anything you want to say quickly about the PD side, because these are part of the shared services that we're offering at the state level with the 10% funds.
So I won't go into a ton of details, but just kind of a sneak peek and things that you're getting ready to hear about. Number one, we are launching from the Department of Ed in collaboration with our education cooperatives, what we are referring to as digital learning design labs. And so you're going to start to hear from your co-ops and from your superintendents what those digital learning design labs can help with. Essentially, it's working on your plan and hitting all of the big strategies that we know to be successful, and helping you implement a plan for reopening in the fall that is more stable, more solid, with a lot of questions being answered through the way. We are planning those right now. We had our first kickoffs yesterday with co-ops, and so it'll be led by co-ops with our help and with your help. And so in many cases there are regional based talent that we want to help share the things that are going well, or the structures or strategies that are going well. So that's PD opportunity number one. Look for that. Number two, we will be launching detailed information very soon with our 10% CARES Act funds to implement a digital learning coach stipend match. And so we'll have details for you, but essentially we want to help you develop at a district level the digital learning coach role. You may already have that in place, and we'll honor that, and you'll have stipend match sent to you based on honoring your previous commitment. You may be a district that does not have that role identified, and we see that in a full-time capacity, a part-time capacity, or a stipend capacity, and we differentiate between those three. This is not the types of funding to hire a full-time position. This is just to help support. And if you, when you match this stipend, there will be dedicated time identified for this role. And we strongly believe that this digital learning coach role is the professional learning experience that is at the right time and hitting on all cylinders that we need to expand the work to onboard our teachers for this fall. And so, David, those are the two PD opportunities that to be looking for. And then finally, I'll just mention, be thinking about if your district is looking to establish a full-time virtual school experience for kids. This is very different than your traditional in-person classroom teachers developing digital learning strategies or blended learning strategies, if you will. So what we're talking about is virtual, full-time enrolled virtual school. We're getting requests daily coming in, and just so if your district is there, we need, and we're pushing as hard as you are, I'm sure, to make sure that you're at the table and a part of the planning of what that full-time virtual enrollment can look like. And we have some strategies built there, and we'll continue to push on that as we launch, and this is important, over the next couple of weeks, our K through 12 Kentucky Online and Virtual Schools Network, which will pull all of our virtual schools together to help common strategies and work on high-quality experiences.
Thank you, Marty. You did a good job with that. That was a lot in a short period of time. So, part of it I see is I've had a chance to talk with a couple of superintendents, and one district has done a good job, and that district has a background in education technology, that they already had thought about a variety of online tools that they could use for a variety of academic subjects, which is fine to continue to pursue. And to think like that, I think is very good, and I think this would be definitely part of the toolbox. We saw one district that took a poll of their parents. Most are. A very high percentage of them said they'd rather start the school year virtually and see how it goes. But they didn't think they had enough teachers to teach virtually, so they wanted something to supplement that. And so what Marty's talking about is a variety. It's not 100% perfect solution. It's not. There's some awkwardness to this as we're trying to do it in a very short period of time. So anybody expecting 100% perfection, you're going to be very disappointed, as with most people are that are 100% perfectionists. But we're going to give it a good run and try to make sure people are aware of a variety of tools that are available to them. And we definitely think virtual and PD is part of it. So, the digital learning coaches have always been important to me. And I've walked that talk with the money. Anytime we've had any kind of source of money, is I've done incentives with that money to establish a digital learning coach. We used to call them technology integration specialists and a variety of other things within districts throughout the years. But this goes back to the 90s. I've always felt strongly the most effective way to do PD is someone, that district, you're trying to work with someone in the district, a point of contact that does that. And that person does just in time training in a short 10 to 15 minute bursts with the teachers. And so by far, that's the most successful way that we found. So, and there's other things you can do in the toolbox, but that's the most successful way that we found. I'd like to go to, I want to see, because I'm not looking at the Go Soapbox things rolling up, Marty. Is there anything that's rolled up before we show questions 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, the responses to that? Is there anything that's rolled up from the responses that I need to respond to that you see, or anyone else that's monitoring that for me? Okay. Thanks. It's shifting on me there.
I'm sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
I was talking quite a bit there. No, we've got some social questions that have come in that are focused on Lightspeed, and our teams are responding to those, which is great. I think one point, David, that circles all the way back is district feels like they have near zero leverage over internet providers to get them to push internet access to anyone at home.
Everybody I know everybody has.
Yeah.
It's not 100%. It's not.
Yeah.
I always will tell people, and anyone that deals with me closely, anyone that wants 100% perfect, you're not going to get it. So there is that extent. I always try to give people, when they say some, and anyone that knows me say some is usually, when I hear some people, some constituents, some whatever, it's usually one or two. It's not a 99% broke for 99%. So I'm always interested, is something 99% broke for 99% or 1% broke for 1%? Not that you don't ignore that 1%, but you put it in some kind of proportion. So yeah, number 5, how you expect? Yeah. Yeah, and I suspect 2 weeks ago that this answer would have been different.
Yeah, I think, and David, just to add in conversations that we've had, I believe 2 weeks ago, the blended learning approach would have been a higher percentage. I think we're seeing starting to see some movement and shifts, and so, yep.
Yeah.
So
and that can be a moving target. I think most know.
Yeah, it will be.
Starting the school year virtually, we saw Los Angeles and San Diego start virtually to give some time, and so it's a moving target type of thing. Let's bring up questions. Just go right ahead with 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Gotcha. So 6. So these next questions are leveraging Infinite Campus for different features and functions. Is your district plan to utilize the new blended learning functionality? So this is new feature set, and I want to make sure that we, on this one specifically, it is very important that whatever the reopening strategy each district implements, it is really important to make sure that we're setting up structures that are not performance-based in structure. So what that means is if you set up courses that are performance-based, then you will not, it's harder to implement the participation measures. Superintendents were made aware of this yesterday, and so this comes into play because the new blended learning functionality inside of Infinite Campus really, really helps us with that. And so if you're not aware of that yet at this time, or if you're not sure at this time, and I know Dee Dee would love to share and jump in that this is something that we need to get up to speed on as quickly as possible.
Before you do that, just let me say I was over optimistic in trying to say we're going to end at 11:15. We will end at 11:30 no matter what. I do think it's important that we go through these, and Bob Hackworth shares some cyber security words of wisdom that we've recently learned with you. So we will end at 11:30, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to end at 11:15. And it's just so much content to try to get in. And I always try to keep these things, but it is so much that we're doing, and the pandemic is causing that. Normally, July is a half hour meeting first. Yeah, let's go to 7. And this is something we have tried for a long time.
Yep.
And please make your chief academic officer aware of this. We have tried for a long time. Marty, if you could scoot that over. Yeah, there you go. And please make your chief academic officer and principals aware of that. We've tried for a long time to get these included in Infinite Campus.
This is major value add. It turns our academic standards, and as we've spoken to in the past several months, it turns our academic standards into actionable, interactive components as opposed to it's companion work to the PDFs that we're used to looking at. This is an interoperability move for us across the state, and so if you're one of the 12, that's awesome that responded with yes. This is really going to be helpful to us, especially as other partners come on board with how to leverage these machine readable academic standards.
And Dee Dee, Connor and team, thank you for your effort through the years of trying to get that done. It wasn't that Infinite Campus was resistant to it. This was mainly internal KDE kind of thing. So it's nice to see it come together and to finally be in there. And this will be a great value to the teachers. So please make your chief academic officer, your superintendent, your principal, and your teachers aware that they are now in there. As Marty says, this is a big win academically, instructionally. Let's go to 8. This question I have, I'm wondering, and I asked Dee Dee, I think in our direct report, and Dee Dee, you can jump in, or someone on Dee Dee's team can jump in. We thought, Dee Dee, your comments as you take a look at this.
We're really, we kind of backed out for the single sign-on push, and because of COVID, and I know we had a lot of different districts were really trying to plan for doing it over the summer. And the original deadline of June 30th, 2020 just didn't seem like it fit. So we still feel like this is a good thing, that there's security issue. KDE has already made the switch. It was really not a heavy lift at all to make that change. So we really just were trying to figure out where other districts were on being able to do this. Knowing that you have higher priority items right now, that's not an issue. You haven't gotten there, we're not saying that, but we are looking to continue the KDE support, because we are funding the Infinite Campus work that they have to do to make it a little easier for you to get all the emails out there and to do the transition through probably June of 2021. So we would like for districts to keep this on their radar, for them to, make plans for when they think the transition would work for them, and to start working with Infinite Campus to plan for that.
And so this is something districts have asked us to do. And for example, the nice part about here, you don't have to go to multiple places when someone leaves. And the reason that's an issue is cybersecurity wise, is that one of the biggest holes in cybersecurity in any organization is you have people coming and going, especially going, and you've not removed them from access to certain things. And then you have cyber criminals who look for these types of accounts and do some very destructive things. And so obviously having single sign-on, allows you to go to one place and, remove someone and removes them across a variety of different areas. I think, Dee Dee, when we spoke last time, I see number, you estimated, and I think this is the one, we had 30 of the 171 districts that have done this. And I said, I'm puzzled why that number is so low, given this was such a hot demand. And I know we've had a lot of things going on. And that's not, fussing, say, gosh, pile on, but we do have some more time to do this. But this is a big win to do that. And it'll be a big win for you and for your school folks that use the product. Go to 9 for online registration. I don't suspect the number, Dee Dee, I'll let you talk to this one, that I think it's about 111. We've had like 111 districts that have signed on, and I want to give the short version of this is to all districts out there. And this was the agreement that I had with Dee Dee. Is I'm going to use a sports analogy. Is one of the very first things I do when I teach basketball to girls or boys at youth level is I show them how to do a layup, not a regular layup off one foot, a jump stop layup. It is as simple as you can get it. And it's not a free throw, it's not a three-pointer, it's not a hook shot. It is a jump stop layup. And what we did was a jump stop layup. There are more sophisticated functionality that is within registration, online registration, but we asked Infinite Campus and the team to focus in on the jump stop, the things that we could do in 30 days. And there's a lot of things that can be done after that we want you to take advantage of, but make sure we properly set expectations always with this product. Is we're just trying to, within a very compressed amount of time with the COVID-19 situation, provide a tool for you to all to do online registration, understanding there are some limitations to the training that we are providing. And not that they won't come at some time, but initially we had to do the basic fundamental things to get people off the ground with it. And making a layup. So Dee Dee, I'll let you take off with this.
Right. We have had, we're estimating 111 districts. We're working with campuses if we can firm those numbers up anyway, because we did turn on online registration for all districts. We've had great participation. We've already had 14 sessions. There's one more opportunity available Wednesday. If you've got folks that you feel like you still haven't done it yet, but you might want to, there's a lot of good training. Yesterday's training was a Q&A, which the approach that's been taken is more like a flipped classroom, come with questions, but we don't always have enough questions. So Infinite Campus trainer yesterday walked them through step by step again. So there's been a lot of opportunity for that. Kim Walters has been our primary contact and has been helping districts one-on-one with a lot of questions. She's also created some documentation to help with the English learner collection to minimize having to collect paper for that one, homeless questions that can be just tweaked a little bit, and then also, how to add links. So there's some new documentation that's out there. Once you register for the course in Infinite Campus, you get all that. You get those emails automatically as anything is added. So a lot of really good information, but I will say it's a lot. It's too much for one person in your district just to say, make this happen. It's something that really takes a team effort to do it, and even to kind of watch it through the process of where they're no longer setting up, but you've got folks processing these applications, the staff level, and making decisions of whether you're going to do it at the district level or if you're going to do it at the school level. So a lot of that information has gone out, but you'll continue to have questions, and we've had a lot of great conversations between districts on this, on best practices, those that have had online registration in place for a while. So
thank you, Dee.
All right.
Last item is campus learning. Dee, I appreciate you and your team and Infinite Campus team and a lot of the districts for what you've done in that area. Huge lift in a very short period of time. This was interesting. Dee, I'll let you comment about what we had before. It seems like we have 80 districts that have decided to move forward with this academic year so far.
Yes, this is one of the campus learning is you had to opt in. So to start the process, you had to actually ask Infinite Campus to turn it on. So campus learning provides tools that allow districts and teachers to take advantage of academic standards and other things in a lot more depth than their initial core products. We've seen a lot of interest. About half of the districts are moving forward with campus learning. I know Lisa Keeter has been working with districts one-on-one that have questions for KDE. Campus has been helping, and they've got a lot of training that's going to go out, targeted type of training for different populations in August, and that information's gone out. So hopefully you're passing that information as you get it along to the appropriate folks. We use our cases, points of contact, and our CIOs to help with that communication, but we know that who the right contact is in every district can be a little bit different.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Last item, and Bob and Phil, you see we're on a shot clock here, is our cybersecurity. Just a reminder, is by law, every district, including KD agency, has to turn in their cyber security health check no later than the end of August, and we do a report to that to the board. We've tried to walk the talk within KD agency. We moved to the new password standards and then encryption for all the hard drives. And as Bob would say, is not only become more secure, we've made it a better experience for our KD staff. So, we're trying to think ways to make it easier for you. Obviously, because the COVID-19 situation is the goal was to have different districts moved over to the new password standard this summer. I know you know this, and it doesn't take me to say it again. K through 12 and your staff and your teachers are being heavily targeted by cyber criminals and crooks. They are going full court press like no time in my 28 years at KD agency, that they're going after us. And so it behooves you, if you can't get that password, you're doing constant things until then, to remind folks to be savvy and don't get fooled and tricked, and be smart and do the smart things during these times that these things can happen. And we've also had an incident happen with a company that our districts interact with that gave us some words of wisdom. So Bob and Phil, you see the shot clock. You got till 11:29, so you got 5 minutes. So you can see it because we're going to end at 11:30.
Okay, I think I can make that, David. Yeah, we had a vendor partner who did have a security incident, and I spoke with their CIO and was very satisfied with the steps that they took. What they said that the advice they gave us, because I asked the CIO after they went through this, what words of wisdom would you have for our districts, because again, this CIO works for a company that works with a lot of our districts. And his number one thing was use multi-factor authentication on everything. And he said, if you have people sign into something, if it supports multi-factor authentication, use multi-factor authentication. He also said to be careful with single sign-on, which is something that we definitely want to engage with. But he said, your folks really need to be very cognizant of phishing attacks and have a great deal of awareness because of that. And so you want to be careful with single sign-on and make sure that folks get the training they need and make sure that you have the technical protections in place to make sure single sign-on works safely. And so that's great advice right now. They also said to lock down all of your privileged accounts. If you have service accounts, if you have admin access, make sure those accounts use MFA, make sure that only the right people have access to those accounts. He also mentioned local admin because one of the issues they had was that the attacker was able to do lateral moves through the company. And then very quickly on the third thing, he said that they did advanced endpoint detection and response, which essentially means that they were looking at logs. They had machine learning looking at logs of what people normally did. And when they saw things happening that weren't supposed to be happening according to what was going on, that's one of the things that clued them into this attacker who had gained access to their company. They had very good backups. They knew what the attacker had looked at, what the attacker hadn't looked at. So they didn't have to go through the process of negotiating with the attacker to try to get keys to get their data back or to prevent the attacker from revealing anything, because they knew that the attacker hadn't really gotten to anything that was significant and that they had good backups for everything that was encrypted. So I'll go ahead and stop there and hand it over to Phil if Phil has any additional words.
Nice job, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob, I think you covered that really well. I think this summer has been the summer for KDE to really put in a lot of security measures, and we put in email banners, advanced threat protection, which is like safe links and safe attachments. And we've done the disk encryption. We're almost finished with that. And by the end of next week, we'll be finished with our password upgrade effort. So we realize that telecommuting and telelearning adds a different layer of security, and you got to be a little bit more savvy with it if they're not behind your firewall and on your prim. So good job, Bob. Thanks.
And Phil, thanks to you and your team for KD agency staff and walking the talk. We plan to share our lessons learned with our KD field staff so they can share them with districts about how we did that. We try to minimize the steps, did a lot of things behind the scenes, minimize things so people could not see the complexity that was actually happening to do that, but also had some follow-up. I mean, if they didn't do it on their own, then, they were locked out for a period of time. And so it wasn't just like they could ignore it. But we said, your experience would be a whole lot better if you do it, before the shot clock reaches this for your office. We went office by office. We did not do it agency wide. Just to give us some time to work on if something happened with a particular office. So I appreciate everyone joining us today. Got a busy August and September ahead. Obviously, a lot of questions. Appreciate your feedback. For most folks, as you realize with these, is if you want to stay on, I'm going to stay on for another probably half hour. You don't have to. This would be optional. I'm just sitting here and just talk with folks up to that time. Whoever wants to stay on and discuss whatever you want to discuss. For those on YouTube, we'll be signing off right here when this ends. For those on Teams, you can stay on if you want to. But for all, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for all your efforts in districts, and thank you for my OET staff team. Thanks for our CATS partners that are helping us and our educational cooperatives. We've achieved a lot, but we have a heck of a year in front of us, school year in front of us. So good luck in preparing for that, and we'll try to do our best to be prepared for it. See you later.